Hey, my name is Jake and this is me. I'm 24 and a senior in college in my last semester. In this video, I want to talk about what video games have and more broadly, how gaming has impacted my life. I know that is a huge statement to make, but I really mean it. I want to talk about how I got into gaming as it is something that I've always had as a hobby. Certain games have really left a mark on me, as well as others, and the industry in general. This video is going to chronicle my upbringing and how games played a role in my development as a kid all the way until now. So without any more stalling, let's start the video. So when it comes to my first memories of having a controller in my hand, I don't really know. It's just always something I had in the house. I grew up with a single mom, so money was hard to come by, but she made sure I had a console. I don't know if I asked for one or even how I got one, but I had a Super Nintendo with a small handful of games. The one I remember the most was Super Mario World. I would play that game for hours, even though I wasn't very good. Some of my favorite memories were my mom and I playing together and beating the levels. She was much better than I was, so watching her taught me how to play. That was one of the earliest memories of falling in love with gaming. It was one of the ways we were able to bond without spending more money. My grandparents later bought me a Nintendo 64 as a gift for when I would go over to their house, which happened a lot since my mom would often have to have them watch me while she worked. One of the games that was given to me was Super Mario 64, and this game blew my mind as a kid. It was the first time seeing Mario in 3D. The music, art style, and gameplay were something I never experienced. Having all these different paintings in the castle transport you to different worlds and trying to find every star was something I would do every visit to my grandparents. Again, since I was still little, my grandma would help me play, and she was amazing at it. We would take turns so we could get all the stars. My grandma was a natural, and soon I developed my own skills. We were so close to beating it, but as a little kid, I made the mistake of deleting our save file that was filled with so many hours. I felt so bad and apologized to my grandma, but she was okay. She stopped playing, unfortunately, after that, since I was old enough to play on my own. It was bittersweet because I know I did not need her help anymore when replaying the game, but I still wanted her to play with me. Anytime I look back on this game, it instantly transports me back to my childhood. Going over to my grandparents and playing together, cheering each other on, solving all the puzzles, and trying to save Princess Peach. I would play many other games on the N64, but none have stayed with me as much as Super Mario 64. Another game that helped me find things I liked through gaming was Pokémon Snap. Now, I did play Pokémon on my Game Boy Color prior to this, but like Super Mario 64, this game let me see Pokémon in a 3D space. This game was very different from your typical Pokémon game. Instead of catching and battling little monsters, you would move through the environment on rails and try to get as many quality photos of Pokémon as you could. Since this was before digital cameras, you shot on film, limiting your opportunities to score the perfect snap. This, and another game I'll talk about later, helped me find my love for photography. Whether that is with film like my Polaroid camera or my digital camera I have now, I would go through all the levels repeatedly, trying to figure out all the secrets and have a picture of every single Pokemon that was in the game. It was so serene and relaxing. There's not really any other game like it. And that serenity is what I like to replicate in my own photography. Now, moving away from Nintendo, which was a big part of my childhood, I want to move over to Sony with PlayStation 1. My uncle had one, and like my grandparents, I would play this every time I visited. My uncle and I would play Tomb Raider, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, and sometimes Resident Evil, which he usually turned off when I came over because I was too scared to even look at that game. My uncle and I would play for hours together, and we formed quite a bond with gaming. I remember seeing a commercial for the PlayStation 2, knowing we had to get one to play all the new games together. I kept telling my uncle we must get one, not understanding that probably at the time, him and my aunt did not have a lot of money to just buy a new PlayStation. I remember asking Santa specifically for a PlayStation 2, for not myself, but for my uncle, so we could play when I came over. That Christmas, I went downstairs and opened my presents like normal, but there was a huge box still left under the Christmas tree. I couldn't read yet, so I asked my mom, "Who is this present for?" She said, "Oh, that's for your Uncle Mike." So we took it with us to my grandparents, where we hold Christmas with the rest of our family to exchange gifts. I was so excited I burst through the door and told him, "He has to open it right now." My uncle opened it and couldn't believe it. We had a PS2 to play together. Whenever I went over, we would always play James Bond Nightfire together. We would play through the story, but the best part of that game was the multiplayer. When people talk about GoldenEye being one of their favorite games as a kid, I didn't have a connection to it, but Nightfire was my GoldenEye. The maps, the weapons, and tiny remote-controlled vehicles you could play around with were amazing. We would replay so many maps against the AI and always win. Looking back, my family really got me into gaming, and it was more of a social activity to spend time with me since I was never really interested in sports. I preferred playing games or drawing my favorite video game characters. I didn't have a lot of close friends growing up. I would usually come home and sit in my room playing Mario while my mom tried to relax or was making us dinner. Gaming, as cheesy as it sounds, was my friend. I got to explore so many different worlds with characters that are still around today. When I wasn't by myself, I was usually with family playing together, having conversations on how to beat the level, or just checking in with me and how things were going. I cannot thank my family enough for allowing me to have access to video games when I was younger. Looking back, I never realized how little money I had growing up. All I cared about after school was being able to sit down, even just for 30 minutes, and being able to forget about my problems going on in my life. After my mom remarried, we moved into our own house, after being in a townhouse for most of my childhood. The neighborhood we moved to had neighbors that were around my age that I could play with outside of school. One specific memory I had that changed everything for me was going over to hang out with one of my neighbors. He had just gotten the Xbox 360. My other uncle had the original Xbox, but I never played on that console because I just wasn't over there enough. So I go over and he's playing Halo 3. Now, I knew what Halo was and had played it at sleepovers for Boy Scouts, but I saw something I didn't know you could do on consoles at that time: online multiplayer. I just remember watching him play against other people on Team Deathmatch. Being able to play with different people all over the world who all are interested in the game that you were playing was something I always wanted to try. That Christmas, I begged for my own 360. I got it and began playing on Xbox Live. Halo 3 was an influential game for me because it was all about the community. You could play through the whole game in 4-player co-op, which I usually played with better people so I could get the achievement for beating it on Legendary. You could also play competitive multiplayer with so many different game modes. You had Team Deathmatch, Capture the Flag, King of the Hill, and my favorite, Infection. One thing, though, stood above all that, and that was custom games. Now, you couldn't just go into the main menu and search for custom games. You had to know people to set up and play together. Many of the game modes I played were made by the community or people I met. This was how I met and made so many friends with so many people from different backgrounds. Most of that time in late middle school and early high school was spent playing Halo 3. I joined many different clans and we would play all kinds of game modes together. Duck Hunt, where you had to make it across the obstacle course while there was a sniper. Fat Kid, where someone was a slow-moving zombie but was super strong, and you had to make it to the very end to get the power-up to defeat them. Or Jenga, where you stood on a man-made tower of objects and had to dodge incoming debris from the enemy, and if you stayed alive, you won. These are just a handful of the almost limitless game modes you could try. Going back to the story, this was one of the first games I had played where the cinematics and music were so important. The story was so grand and the score is something so nostalgic for me. I occasionally go back and replay it just to relive those memories. Halo 3 was not just monumental to me, but many others. Even if Halo wasn't your favorite game, you played it to catch up and hang out with friends. There hasn't really been a game mode like that since, where you would log on and your whole friend list was playing the same game together. One game that I got by pure luck during my time with the 360 was BioWare's Mass Effect. I got this game out of a bargain bin for only $15 and I became so invested in this world. This is gaming Star Wars, and what I mean by that is that the world and characters are so rich and epic in scope. The simple explanation of the plot is you become a space cop and must try and stop a race of killer AI from wiping out the galaxy. This game was one of the first story-based games I had played where you would make your own character and they were fully voiced. You had the option to pick between Paragon and Renegade, deciding if certain characters joined on your mission or even survived to appear in the next game. Mass Effect also allowed you the ability to romance certain crew members on your ship. You could romance Ashley, Kaidan, or Liara, who was an alien. Liara was different from the other characters, obviously being an alien, but it did not matter what gender you were, you could romance her. Having the option helped me come to terms with my own sexuality. The game never made a big deal if a female shepherd decided to romance her. Characters didn't have any reaction to same-sex relationships. It was treated as valid as heterosexual relationships. This game, and the game that followed in the series, truly helped me normalize and come to terms with me being gay. Without them, I don't know if I would even have come out as early as I did. Not only did this game help me be more comfortable with myself, but the story was something I was so invested in. Now I know I made the story seem very generic, but it's more than that. In the first game, you successfully defeat the ancient race of killer robots returning known as Reapers. But along the way, you make key choices. Do I save another ancient race from going extinct? Do I save a group of colonists from an organism that is mind-controlling them? Do I shoot my teammate Wrex because he disagrees on stopping a lab that could hold a cure to saving his race from dying out? Do I keep the Council alive who doubted my findings the whole game and let the Reapers blow up their ship as they are escaping the incoming attack at the climax of the game? This game had so many choices that allowed you to play how you wanted. The decision was truly up to you. The second game focused more on building up a team to take on the Collectors, a race of bug humanoids who are kidnapping humans. Mass Effect 2 gives you time to get to know your crew and gain their loyalty. Without it, they could die in the final suicide mission. Mass Effect 2 gave the player way more choices and allowed for interrupts for you to change the conversation with the left or right trigger. I still get nervous when going into the suicide mission, even though I know I did everything right, because the game makes your crewmates so important, you don't want to lose your favorite characters. Mass Effect 3 builds off all those choices you've made in the prior two games and brings you to the finale, where you need to stop the Reapers and save the galaxy one last time. Even though the game wasn't perfect and didn't have the best ending, I still have a fondness for trying to do the unthinkable one last time with characters you have cared for and developed friendships with. The game that led me to my friend group that I play with to this day, 10 years later, was Red Dead Redemption. Red Dead had an amazing single-player campaign, but the online functions at the time were different. You were able to team up with other players and explore this huge map together. I began by trying to find a group to play with, which led me to a random group on a forum that was listed. After playing with them, they began to invite me to other games, which introduced me to more people, and it's as simple as that. As I began to play with them more and everyone talked about their lives, I began to share more parts of mine. I remember being so fearful and scared to come out to them. I had never even said the words out loud to myself, but I told them I was gay, and it was the most freeing thing. By telling them and talking about being gay, they provided me with an environment where I felt comfortable to be real and not fear what would be said about me. Those friends I made gave me the courage to come out to my family and were there for me during a time where I was in a serious period of depression. Without that listing on some random page when the game started, I might not have met some lifelong friends that I consider family at this point. I have shared some of the happiest memories of spending countless weekends together. Even if we weren't all playing the same game, we would just talk for hours about our days. My friends have also been there through some difficult times I had as I developed depression and anxiety. I cannot thank them enough for being there for me during times where some days I couldn't even leave my bed, but I could get in a party and be able to not feel alone. Being able to communicate with people, even though they were thousands of miles away, were at the time my only friends I had. I really can't thank technology enough for being able to allow me to make friends with people I would have normally never been able to meet or talk to. After high school, I went to a community college where I felt lost. I changed my major but still didn't know what I wanted to do. I went through a period of a deep depression. What is my purpose? What do I do with my life? I turned to gaming during this time to unwind after a stressful day of school or work. The first year I was in school, one of the games that still sticks with me was Life is Strange. I didn't know what to expect when playing this game, but it was told in an episodic format like Telltale's The Walking Dead and Wolf Among Us. A brief synopsis of the game is you play as Max Caulfield, who moved back to her hometown to go to a prestigious art school, and as the day goes by like normal, you witness a murder at the school. And before you can react, you wake up right where you started at the beginning of the game. Later, you learn you can reverse time and find out that your childhood friend was the one who was murdered. You go on an adventure trying to figure out what happened to the missing girl who was close to your best friend and figure out why you have this amazing power. One of the ways this game stuck out to me was just the soundtrack. It's filled with great indie hits and helps captivate the tone and progression of the story. The gameplay, while simple, has great puzzles to solve involving your powers to go back and forward through time. Each episode creates new and interesting ways you can use your power, from getting back at your bully if you wish, to finding out a way to break into the school at night without the alarms going off. Even though this game is very simple and easy to play, that's not why I enjoy it, and go back to it once a year. The story for me is one of a kind. The constant theme of memories and nostalgia are a huge factor that play a major role in this game. When discussing the art of the game, developer Dontnod said that the color palette focused mainly on warm colors and golden lighting, to feel a sense of nostalgia, like rose-colored lenses. As you play more of the game, you later gain the power to travel back in time by going through old photos, and changing major events that come with repercussions. The story of two friends falling out of a friendship due to Max moving away and then moving back, and how her friend Chloe deals with that. When exploring different areas, you can soon piece together how their friendship used to be through old photographs, drawings, and notes when they were kids. You can rekindle friendship on your adventure while deciding different choices by reversing time, and seeing which path you want to move forward with. Max and Chloe rekindle their friendship through the story, but you soon learn the reason all these weird events are happening, along with a storm fast approaching your home. You realize that the action of you saving her from her death and other near-death experiences in the story is having a negative effect on the world. At the end of the game, you must either decide to save Arcadia Bay, your home, or Chloe, your best friend who you finally rekindled your relationship with. This game hit me in my gut. You spend much of the game patching up a friendship and caring about Chloe, only for the game to tell you that you need to let her go. This game just hit me at the right time. For me, in the sense that I was growing up and staying home to pursue school while a lot of my friends were going away to school, being on totally different paths than me. Now, while my close friends did stay local for school, we all had different schedules. Gone were the days of spending every morning together, getting together on snow days, having classes together. While we still get together every now and then, it was just different. And with time, it was bound to happen. And like the game, you can stop time as much as you want, but you have to let go and move forward. You can't perpetually stay in the past on a loop, enjoying those times, because you soon forget to be in the present. As much as we wish to go back during certain times of our lives because it was easier, or we miss seeing certain people, we can't get caught up in it. Which is why I think this was the main theme of the game, learning to let go. The two endings of the game are completely different. Choosing to save Chloe, you are then shown her and Max driving through town after it's destroyed. All the characters other than them are dead because you decided you wanted to hold on to the past and you were too afraid to let go. While the other ending shows Chloe being murdered, her killer is not able to get away with it. You attend her funeral but are played a song, and as the music swells, a blue butterfly, like the one you took a photo of, right before her death lands on her coffin, symbolizing she's okay and you can let the grief and guilt go. For a game to go that deep into friendship, and that it's okay if you fall out with someone, you can hold on to those good memories, just don't get lost in them. Now, after getting really deep with that, it also helped me appreciate photography more. It was something I really enjoyed, and being able to do that in a game, even though the photos you take are more like collectibles, it was still fun to do. I ended up buying my own Polaroid and taking it with me whenever I was hanging out with friends so we could have something physical to keep with us after. This game will stick with me because, in an ironic way, I have nostalgia for it. And replaying it is like catching up with an old friend. I loved it so much, I chose to get a tattoo to dedicate how important it is to me, and carry it with me wherever I go. As I've gotten older, I realize I don't have as much time to play as I once did. And that's kind of due to life. I mostly just play games that are quick and easy to play with friends, like Overwatch, most of the time, but if a major release comes out like Red Dead 2 or Last of Us Part 2, I find time to sink hours into it. When I finally decided to go back to school, I went into it with the intention of trying to do something with tech, like app design or web design, but as I took other classes, I found what I really love to do is produce and edit content. From the moment I learned how to use basic editing programs, I tried to incorporate video games as much as I could. From using a game like Gang Beast to make a backstory for a character I made that is a tough old lady, to using Mass Effect as a mini-movie that I compiled footage together to make a movie trailer. Most of my projects I like to revolve around something I love, which was gaming, and still is. And I want to figure out how to take that into something I love and make a career on it. I've seen so many people make video game essays for games they love or just expressing their views on the industry, and I think that's something I want to do. I want to be able to make content that gives a thoughtful perspective of how much I love certain games and franchises, or even being able to take someone's content and help them edit their vision of what they're trying to say. I would love to work in editing for places like IGN, Rooster Teeth, What Culture, just to name a few from the many that stand out to me. I get inspired so much by the content I have grown up with and learning how to produce my own content and have my voice shared. Being able to work with video games is something I wanted to do my whole life but was too scared to try. But in my years of school, it feels like that's where I belong. So with all that, I thank you for your time and sticking with me during this long video. I also want to say a quick thank you to my family, friends, and partner for sticking with me and believing and supporting me during all of this.